To put things probably a little too delicately, 2020 was a weird time for all of us. And baseball players were no exception. MLB saw its season delayed and then shortened to just 60 games. The playoff bracket doubled and then some in size, and teams were only playing other teams in their specific region. The terms fun and 2020 usually aren't associated with each other at all, but it does kind of apply in baseball because we got some truly bizarre stat lines from this shortened season. Much like the World Series winning Dodgers at the time, these breakout surprise superstars of the 2020 season garnered a lot of respect for their efforts in the shortened campaign, but with the passing of time, that respect has dwindled a lot, almost to the point of non-existence. So today, we're going to remember the faces of baseball from a season that we'd like to forget. This is the All-2020 MLB squad. Now, I want to set a couple parameters before we dive into this thing. First, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. Second, this list isn't just about highlighting the best players from 2020, because then you'd have names like Juan Soto and Ronald Acuna Jr., which would make perfect sense. So those players are mostly excluded because they've been great and will probably continue to be great. The biggest thing here is I'm looking for players that excelled in 2020 and then never really returned to the caliber of play that they had in these 60 games. Other than that, it's all fair game, so why don't we just dive right in. For our catching position, I did ponder a few choices, most notably San Diego's backstop Austin Nola, with him setting career highs in triple slash line and OPS. But with him, Nola was a productive player both the year before and the year after, and was a relatively respected name among catchers for a 3-year stretch. So Aaron's brother will not be getting this spot. It'll instead be going to the 2020 Los Angeles Angels catcher Max Stassi. Stassi had actually been around since 2013 in Houston's system, but had put together just 89 plate appearances in a 5-year stretch from 2013 to 2017. This was due to both injuries and limited opportunities. He was traded to the division rival Angels a year prior to 2020, and at age 29, he was finally given the keys to a starting role for the first time in his career. Stassi set career highs in triple slash line, walking in over 10% of his at-bats, and finishing with the 5th highest weighted runs created plus among catchers with at least 100 plate appearances. His 1.0 WAR may not seem like a lot, but in 31 games, that put him on pace for a 5-WAR season across a full slate. In fact, the only players with a higher OPS plus that season on the Angels were Mike Trout, which isn't that surprising, Jared Walsh, who people forget was very, very good for like a 3-year stretch at the plate, and Anthony Rendon, who played one 60-game season and thought, you know what, this should be the amount of time I play every season from here on out. Stassi had some highlights beyond 2020, winning AL Player of the Week and even signing a 3-year extension worth $17.5 million. Injuries and off-the-field problems have prevented Stassi from building upon that breakout season, making it all the more worthy of a spot on our odds squad here today. Our first base position was a tight race between the two big men in New York at the time, but I think I'm going to give the edge to Luke Voit of the New York Yankees. Dom Smith will definitely talk about a little bit later because he deserves his own mention. Voit was the obvious pick here because he led all MLB hitters with 22 home runs in the COVID-shortened season. It's true that Voit was a prominent hitter before 2020, slashing an OPS just under 900 in roughly a full season's worth of games from 2018 to 2019. But I think most people expected a full ascension to stardom for Luke Voit considering what he accomplished in 2020, and the aftermath of this season is why he gets his placement here. There is a world where the New York Yankees completely fall apart in 2020 without Luke Voit's efforts. Both Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton missed over half the games in the regular season, paving the way for Luke Voit to step in as the premier power threat in the lineup. He managed to hit 20 home runs through the first 50 games of the season alone, tying an MLB record and also joining Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle as the only other Yankees to do that. Yes, you heard that correctly. There is somehow a stat that groups together Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, and Luke Voit. I love my job. But following his breakout 2020 season where he finished top 10 in MVP voting, injuries caused a series of unfortunate events for the first baseman. Luke Voit tore his meniscus in his left knee in March of the following year, and then 2 weeks after returning in May, he strained his right oblique. After coming back in late June, he went down again with left knee inflammation 3 weeks later, putting him on the injured list for the 3rd time in 2021. The Yankees, in need of a replacement, traded for Anthony Rizzo at the deadline, and the rest became history. So after initially coming to the Yankees via trade with the Cardinals, Voit was traded again to the Padres, and then 6 months after that was traded again to the Washington Nationals as part of the initial Juan Soto trade. Just 3 years after putting himself on the map as the home run king of baseball, Luke Voit found himself fighting for playing time at the minor league level, and it's uncertain if we'll see him on a big league roster again anytime soon. But there is one thing we can say with absolute certainty. Sure, Luke Voit's MLB career might have hit a roadblock, but one thing that never will are these biceps. I mean, these things are like the size of my head. And I got like a big head, man. Second base was an interesting field of candidates. At first, it felt like a two-horse race between Tommy La Stella and Cavan Biggio. In my opinion, a much more deserving player for this spot is none other than the 2020 postseason legend himself, Mike Brosseau. Now, Brosseau played a lot of positions, 6 to be exact, and he only played a grand total of 10 games at second base, but I'm going to take some liberties here, so don't get mad at me. Brosseau's path to MLB was harsh as an undrafted free agent, but he finally made it to the show at age 25 in 2019. After a solid rookie campaign, Brosseau exploded for the Rays in 2020 with a .302 batting average and 160 OPS plus in 36 games. The only player with a higher OPS plus at second base that year was DJ LeMahieu, who would of course take home the batting title. But the real reason he gets the spot here is for his dramatic rivalry with Yankees closer Aroldis Chapman. In a September matchup in the regular season, Chapman brushed him back quote-unquote unintentionally with a heater at his head and was subsequently suspended 3 games for this pitch. Later, when the two clubs met in the ALDS, Brosseau got an opportunity for revenge like no other. In a tied game in a pivotal Game 5 matchup, Brosseau faced off against Aroldis Chapman, worked a brilliant long at-bat, and then hit the series-winning solo home run, sending the Tampa Bay Rays to the American League Championship Series and eventually the World Series. I truly am sorry to all my Yankees fans watching, but 29 other fan bases were rooting for this to happen. This was one of the most memorable moments of 2020 as a whole. After his heroics, Brosseau bounced between AAA and MLB for both the Rays and the Brewers in the ensuing years, never again reaching the heights that he achieved in the shortened season. But man, was that home run swing sweet. Shortstop was one of the easier picks on our entire team, and that honor belongs to none other than 2024 pop star Jose Iglesias. Guys, I'm not biased. You weren't supposed to see that. Though his most recent season was definitely his most memorable, 2020 was easily his most surprising, especially at the time. Iglesias had been around for 8 years to that point, mostly known as a savvy glove-first infielder, and when he joined the lowly Baltimore Orioles for the shortened season, there was no reason to suspect a breakout was imminent for the then 30-year-old infielder. After setting a career high with 11 home runs for the Reds a year prior, Iglesias had evolved as a hitter, and Iglesias credits Joey Votto's influence as a key reason for his late career turnaround. Coming off his Cincinnati tenure, Iglesias shattered his career best marks with a .373 batting average and .956 OPS that was 57% better than league average and best among all shortstops in 2020. Slotted in as the everyday 3-hitter, the guy mostly known for his glove throughout his career got just as many starts at designated hitter than he did at shortstop. This surprising breakout was followed by a return back down to earth in the 2 seasons that followed, a detour at AAA in 2023, and then of course the ridiculous and magic events of the 2024 season that brought this whole thing together. Before I get to the next pick of the All-2020 squad, I gotta thank the DraftKings Sportsbook for sponsoring today's video. Super Bowl 59 is right around the corner, and it's the perfect time to get in on the action. Right now, all new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when they make just a $5 bet using promo code OLIVE. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at the DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. Download their app now, use my promo code OLIVE, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. The crown is yours. Now let's see who else figures to be on the All-2020 MLB squad. Shortstop was a fun story, but third base is a frustrating story. Unfortunately, the easy pick for our third base position is going to be Ke'Bryan Hayes of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I only say unfortunately because I really did think that his rookie season in 2020 was the start of something truly special. While his glove has remained one of, if not the best at third base on the entire planet, his bat has taken a serious step back since the pandemic season. Granted, Hayes set the bar ridiculously high for himself with his rookie run. The former 2015 first-round pick was a September call-up for the Buccos and only played in the final 24 games of the season, partially due to the fact that he had tested positive for COVID-19 earlier in the year. But even in that small sample, he made enough of an impact to still garner National League Rookie of the Year votes. He finished his 95 plate appearance stint with a .376 batting average, the highest among anyone with that many plate appearances in 2020. His 1.124 OPS was only outdone by Juan Soto. In the last 15 years of Pirates baseball, only Ke'Bryan Hayes, Josh Bell, and Andrew McCutchen have put up a month where they maintained an OPS above 1100 overall. But in the 4 years since, Hayes has only finished with an above league average OPS plus one time, the same year that he snapped Nolan Arenado's streak of 10 straight Gold Glove awards at third base. base. There's no doubt that he's a valuable player with a pair of 4 WAR seasons, but last year signaled a significant decline in offensive production, so much so that it might result in Hayes losing his gig at third base altogether. Here's hoping for a turnaround, but it's clear that Hayes won't return to being the offensive powerhouse that he was as a 23-year-old rookie in 2020. Moving over to left field, it's only right that we give Dom Smith his due, being that we snubbed him at first base. Yeah, the Mets kind of just used to do this thing in the 2010s where they would stick anyone and everyone in left field. You had JD Davis, who had some of the worst play I've ever seen in left field, and then you had Dom Smith, who was a natural first baseman dealing with sleep apnea, and the Mets had him out there picking daisies. Like, of course he's gonna struggle, man. After a breakout campaign in 2019 was cut short by an untimely foot fracture, Dom Smith had an incredible 50-game run for the surprisingly potent Mets offense. He only got this playing time because Yoenis Cespedes played the first game of the season and then just totally disappeared on the team, and that was the end of his Mets tenure. It was a weird time in Mets fandom. His 21 doubles ranked second across all MLB hitters that season, only outdone by the NL MVP in Freddie Freeman, and he ranked in the top 10 for OPS with a mark near 1,000. Smith profiled as a dangerous hitter for the future, being that he could hit lefties just as well as righties and was able to spray the ball all over the field. He finished with National League MVP votes and posed a serious threat to overtake Pete Alonso as the first baseman of the future in Queens, with the 2019 Rookie of the Year struggling for most of the pandemic season. But as it would turn out, Smith took a massive step back when given the keys to the everyday left field role in the season that followed, and he was relegated to a bench role by season's end. He was worth negative wins above replacement in each of the next 2 seasons with the Mets, bringing his tenure with the club to an unceremonious end nearly a decade after being selected as their first-round pick in 2013. He's since had brief stints with the Nationals and Red Sox in the years that followed, never coming close to the caliber of offense that he was producing in 2020. With a list like this, it's only right that we include a player who came away with some hardware from the 2020 season. In a list full of oddities, our center fielder Kyle Lewis may be the biggest of all, as he's now known as one of the most peculiar Rookie of the Year winners of all time. Originally a 2016 first-round pick and top 100 prospect for the Seattle Mariners, Lewis got everyday playing time in 2020 after a brief but successful September call-up a year prior. After opening the season with a 10-game hitting streak, Lewis steadied the momentum into a very impressive shortened season. In addition to his defensive prowess in a very spacious outfield at T-Mobile Park, Lewis clubbed 11 home runs in 58 games, good for an 801 OPS on the year. The 24-year-old rookie missed just 2 games on the season as a whole and was easily the most valuable player on the Mariners roster throughout the season. By Fangraphs wins above replacement, the only primary center fielders that were more valuable than him in that year were Ronald Acuna Jr., Trent Grisham, and Mike Trout. In a rookie class supplemented by talents like Luis Robert of the White Sox, Sean Murphy of the Oakland Athletics, and Christian Javier of the Houston Astros, the unanimous pick for the honors was Kyle Lewis, and the decision made perfect sense at the time. This made him the first Seattle player to win the award since Ichiro Suzuki claimed that and the MVP nearly 2 decades prior in 2001. Heading into 2021 with the impending debuts of their other young outfield talents in Julio Rodriguez and Jarred Kelenic, the Mariners looked like they were constructing one of the most talented outfield groups in all of baseball. But only J-Rod would emerge from that group as a mainstay for the future. Kyle Lewis had an unfortunate bout with numerous injuries. He went down with a meniscus tear in his right knee. This was particularly devastating as his persistent knee issues seriously worsened his defensive prowess, eventually moving him off the center field position that he originally excelled at. A dip in offensive quality and concussion issues had Lewis demoted to the minor leagues in 2022, and the Mariners decided to cut ties soon after, trading him to Arizona, bringing an abrupt end to what should have been a promising MLB career that began with Rookie of the Year honors. Well, speaking of Arizona, our last outfield spot was a tightly contested race, but I think I'm going to give this one to Tim LeCastro of the Diamondbacks. Unlike many of our other selections on this list, LeCastro was not a high draft pick or a highly regarded prospect by any means. In 2019, he served as the Diamondbacks' 4th outfielder and was a decently valuable bench piece. LeCastro ended up maintaining the highest OPS plus of any player on Arizona's squad in 2020, finishing his 33-game stint with a 133 OPS plus. He extended his career stolen base streak to an impressive total of 26 without a single failure on his resume. At 27 years old, his offensive breakout was a tad suspect, but there was still hope that LeCastro could be a valuable contributor for Arizona moving forward, with improvements to his plate discipline across the board. Sadly, this was not the case. LeCastro took a step back in every facet of his game in 2021, and saw his OPS fall over 300 ticks from the mark he set a season prior. 2020 stands out as a surprising blip on the speedster's 7-year MLB resume. Our last and final entrant to our squad squad is our pitcher, and this might have been the easiest pick of the entire video. In my opinion, among pitchers, no one embodies the weirdness and the chaos of 2020 more than Dinelson Lamet of the San Diego Padres. He initially made his debut in 2017, but Lamet was sidelined for the better part of 2 years with a UCL tear and Tommy John surgery that followed. He had always demonstrated tremendous strikeout potential with his nasty slider, a pitch that he used more than his fastball. But no one was really sure what to expect when Lamet returned fully healthy for the shortened season, but Lamet turned in a surprising breakout season at age 27 with a terrific run of a dozen starts during 2020, finishing 4th in National League Cy Young voting. In 9 of his 12 starts that year, Lamet pitched at least 5 innings and allowed 2 earned runs or less, resulting in a sparkling 2.09 ERA over 69 innings. The Padres were victorious in 10 of his 12 starts that season as well. Lamet's efforts largely contributed to the Padres snapping their long postseason drought, which had now extended to over a decade, though he would be unavailable to pitch on their playoff run due to an untimely biceps injury. Overall, Lamet finished with the 5th best ERA and Fangraphs wins above replacement among pitchers with at least 50 innings in 2020, and he figured to be a solidified piece of the Padres' rotation of the future. But much like many of his teammates on this All-2020 squad, injuries would get in the way of Lamet reaching his true potential. Lamet suffered another UCL injury in 2021, and tightness in his throwing arm relegated him to a bullpen role moving forward. In the 4 years since his 2020 breakout, Lamet has pitched just a little over 100 innings with a high ERA and unfavorable walk and hit rates. But it's hard to say if Lamet will get any real pitching time in the near future to the extent that he got in 2020. And that'll do it for my All-2020 MLB team. Leave a comment down below if you disagree with any of my picks. Let me know who you would have picked instead. This was a lot of fun for me, so let me know if you had fun watching it. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. But that'll do it for me on today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.